The story begins at the king's palace, where Prince Seryu cannot believe what is happening. He has been single until the age of 25, mocked as the winter bear, yet now, a cute girl is standing before him as his bride. The thought makes him wonder if he can keep his composure, as he questions whether he is good enough to be her partner, realizing that life with her will bring both joy and embarrassment. The bride looks up at him with soft eyes and asks what is wrong. Seryu stares, overwhelmed by how cute she looks, her silky silver hair and smooth skin leaving him stunned. He cannot believe that a girl like her is now his wife. She wonders if his expression means her appearance bothers him, but he quickly denies it and admits the truth. She looks too cute, and he feels someone like him does not deserve her. His thoughts tumble over themselves, unsure where to even begin, struggling to keep up with the situation, his composure slipping away. Queen Tidros then reminds him that today is the engagement ceremony, and from now until the wedding in half a year, they will be living together. She warns that he must not engage in inappropriate behavior, and Seryu panics inwardly, wondering if his sanity can survive that long. 3 months earlier, Seryu traveled with his mother. She tells him they are almost there, and he replies politely, though he knows her true purpose is not only to attend the crown prince's engagement ceremony in the Caravan United Kingdom, but also to arrange his own marriage. He realizes something is wrong. She intends to put him forward instead of the crown prince. At 25, still without a fiancé, he is considered unusual. The reason is simple. He is not popular. His eldest brother, Leonidas L. Tidros, is the crown prince, and his second brother, Michaela L. Tidros, married abroad, admired for his beauty and graceful looks that resemble their mother. Seryu, in contrast, takes after his rugged father, King Tidros. As the third son, he spends his winters on the frontier with the Night Order, crushing bandits and rebels, earning himself the nickname Winter Bear of Tidros. Back then, Seryu often skipped shaving, and still being called a bear felt unfair. Because of that nickname, people in the capital saw him as scary, gross, or smelly, and every arranged meeting for a partner ended in failure. He sighs, thinking it would be fine to stay single for the rest of his life, wishing only to end things quietly and go home. Just then, chaos breaks out. The crown prince of the luminous kingdom, Arios, suddenly declares the engagement is off. Seryu is stunned, wondering what Arios is thinking. Beside Arios stands Male, from the hardy Baron family, known to be the prince's lover and practically a public mistress. The official fiancée is Citone Baramo, though her face is hidden under a veil. At first glance, she looks like a moving white cocoon. It is said she has been living with Arios for 2 years before the ceremony, so to be treated so cruelly by her own fiancé must be unbearable. Arios raises his voice, claiming this decision comes because Citone committed repeated inhuman acts against his beloved Male. He insists Male tried to speak to her many times, but was ignored. But Seryu thinks to himself that it's natural a baron's daughter cannot freely address royalty, and sometimes silence is the only option. Even during tea parties, Arios accuses that Male was deliberately left out and treated like an outcast. Seryu again notes inwardly that there's no way a baron's daughter could even take part in a royal tea party. To him, these two seem far too naive about the rules of high society. Arios then insists that Male was even bumped into on the dance floor. Seryu frowns, wondering if it wasn't the other way around, that perhaps she was the one who bumped into someone instead. All the attendees look at the crown prince with cold eyes, while Lady Citone endures the unreasonable accusations quietly. Seryu wonders if she has simply given up, thinking it pointless to defend herself any further. Then Queen Tidros suddenly calls out to Seryu and asks if he has a lover. Seryu smiles awkwardly, startled by the sudden question, and admits he does not. The queen calmly declares that, in that case, they should take the young lady. Seryu freezes in shock, thinking how casually his mother treats such a matter, as if wrapping up a gift. Arios, growing more furious, lashes out and claims that someone with such an ugly heart could never be his wife. Seryu mutters in disbelief, wondering if Arios is still going on about the same thing. Arios smirks arrogantly, and his words echo in Seryu's mind, that someone with her appearance could never be his wife, that they were not suited for each other. Seryu clenches his jaw and demands to know what Arios thinks he is doing, insulting a woman's appearance in public. He firmly tells him to take those words back. Arios stares in surprise, while Seryu declares that even though Arios is the crown prince of another country, such an insult cannot be overlooked. The crowd rises in agreement, shouting that he should take his words back. Citone gasps in confusion and whispers, "Atsuhito." Seri hears the unfamiliar name and stiffens at the sound. Eri repeats the name Atsuhito, thinking it unfamiliar and wondering what language it comes from, reminding himself that this should be the first time he has ever met her. Meanwhile, Arios raises his voice and declares that, no matter what anyone says, the engagement is broken off. This prompts King Noi to step forward and scold his son for being a fool, causing Arios to look confused at his father. King Noi then turns to Lord Baramo and apologizes desperately, only for Lord Baramo, still stern, to respond that there is no need for apologies. He firmly states that he will take his foolish daughter, Sitone, back with him to the kingdom of Tanya. Seri realizes the stern gentleman is Sitone's father and remembers that the kingdom of Tanya is rich in minerals, making him worry that breaking this engagement will result in a huge loss. He can see that King Noi wants to avoid that at all costs, but with the crown prince acting so recklessly, the trouble is only growing worse. That's when Queen Tidros steps forward and politely asks King Noi and Lord Baramo if she may speak, surprising Seri as his mother leads him through the crowd. King Noi greets her in surprise, while Queen Tidros mentions meeting him last at an evening party in the Caravan Kingdom. Lord Baramo humbly replies that he is honored to be addressed by her. With calm grace, Queen Tidros turns to King Noi and asks if the engagement is really going to be broken. King Noi quickly shakes his head, saying the engagement is not being broken off, but Lord Baramo firmly insists that it is fine. He will take his foolish daughter home anyway. Seri groans inwardly, knowing his mother always turns everything into black and white. He watches as Queen Tidros puts a hand on her chest and says she feels for the young lady, calling the treatment she received poor. Seri panics inside, fearing that if he had kept quiet earlier, he might have been in trouble himself. Remaining calm, Queen Tidros praises the bride for keeping her composure, saying it is exactly what she would expect from a young lady educated to be a crown princess. Then she addresses the veiled girl, asking if she can speak Tidros. The girl softly replies that she is still inexperienced, but knows enough for daily life. Queen Tidros compliments her modesty and clear pronunciation, adding that learning languages for negotiation is important for royalty. Male, watching nearby, frowns and asks what they are saying, only for Arios to brush her off and hold her close. Seri mutters in frustration, wondering why his mother is asking such questions. While Arios continues to hold Sitone and repeat his claims, Seri wonders silently about his mother's reasoning. Queen Tidros continues with her elegant speech and suddenly suggests that perhaps Lord Baramo should consider letting his daughter become her own foolish son's companion, stunning Seri and the entire audience. Seri nearly screams inside, thinking it's unbelievable. A daughter trained to be a crown princess, now matched with him, the third son with a losing streak in matchmaking. He feels unworthy and worries that his mother sees him through some strange filter that makes him seem more handsome and charming than he knows he is. Lord Baramo says her words are too kind, but as a vassal of the King of Tanya, he must first ask the king's wishes before giving a formal reply. Queen Tidros agrees, adding that as a parent, not as royalty, she would rather trust her daughter to the prince who defended her honor. At that moment, Seri steps forward and explains that he doesn't look like his mother or brothers, that he spent his life with the Knight Order and is not good at dealing with women. Above all, he is the third son and only titled as Duke, with not much more. He admits he isn't clever enough to run the court either. Queen Tidros silently wonders if her son is ruining a great chance, but Seri stands firm and says that nobody should make the choice for the young lady, and even if he's rejected, it won't bother or hurt him. He just wants her wishes to be respected. Lord Baramo turns and states that Seri's nickname, the man with the losing streak in matchmaking, is known even in Tanya. It shocks Seri, who thought that was private. Lord Baramo calls him none other than the Winter Bear of Tidros, then thanks him for standing up for his daughter at the ceremony. Male mocks him by calling him Bear-san. 2 months later, a formal proposal arrives from the kingdom of Tanya. Seri expects it will be a rejection, but Queen Tidros is delighted, saying it is wonderful, and a frenzy of preparations for the engagement ceremony begins. Seri's adjutant Raul drills him constantly, telling him to walk briskly and move 3 steps to the right, repeating it so many times that Seri feels his ears hurt. Finally, the day of the ceremony arrives, even though Seri has never actually seen Sitone's face. Raul mutters that it's lucky the crown prince of Luminous was foolish. He explains that Sitone Baramo is 20 years old and comes from a family with royal bloodline in Tanya. 2 years ago, she came to the Luminous Kingdom for bridal training, but the prince disliked her appearance, so they never became close. Raul warns Seiryu not to expect much from her looks. Seiryu sighs, thinking Raul is rude, but admits she probably doesn't expect much from his looks either. That is, until her veil is lifted. And Seiryu is so shocked he nearly falls over, quickly turning his face away. When Sitone's face is revealed, he turns and mutters to himself not to make mistakes. She places her hand on her heart, worried, asks if he is all right. He wonders where the ugliness he's heard about could be. Seiryu sees that she's actually incredibly beautiful, which makes him panic. He wonders what someone like him can do with someone so lovely. He tries to calm down as Raul reminds him not to keep his fiancée waiting. The prince moves closer to Sitone to kiss her forehead, but stumbles over his words, admitting that he's in a panic because she is just too cute. He feels he doesn't deserve her and has no idea how to even begin. Finally, he excuses himself, and she softly replies. His mind spins, her beauty feels overwhelming, her innocent cuteness almost dangerous, and her very existence feels sinful. He compares her to a small animal, like a snowy rabbit or a white marten, with big round eyes and soft fur. He feels so nervous at the thought of touching her skin that he tells himself to reject any impure thoughts. As he stands next to her, Seiryu desperately wonders if his sanity will survive the 6 months leading up to the wedding. That night, the engagement ceremony somehow finishes safely. Later, Raul sits with Seiryu, wiping his eyes. Seiryu asks why he is crying, and Raul insists he is not crying, only happy that his captain is finally engaged. Raul, about to turn 30, has been raised like a brother to Seiryu and serves as vice-captain of the Knight Order. Though reasonably popular, he often said he could not think of marrying while leaving the captain behind. Now, with Seiryu engaged, Raul feels free to marry without worry. For years he teased that the captain could not get a girlfriend because of his lame clothes and hair, and now he sheepishly apologizes for it. Seiryu mutters lame under his breath, then sighs and says he needs to think about what comes next. His older brother had just given him a stern warning not to make any mistakes. He reminded Seiryu that after the engagement ceremony they must live together, and that this was a direct order from the king of Tanya. Because of the broken engagement in the past, it would be a disaster if the bride were with child before the royal blessings. Seiryu protests that his brother worries too much and asks how many times he plans to repeat the warning, but his brother only answers with a smug look. At the dinner party, Seiryu's brother teases him, saying he spent the whole time with a face that clearly said, "My wife is so cute." Then he adds that Sitone apparently carries a dragon mark, so Seiryu will need to be even more careful. Seiryu thinks about what he has heard, that the kingdom of Tanya is also called the Dragon Country, a land whose very foundation was tied to dragons. Within the royal family, only a rare few are born with scale tattoos known as dragon marks. To marry someone who bears such a mark is considered an incredibly great honor. Their conversation is interrupted as the butler enters and announces that word has just arrived. Lord Vandal will be paying a visit tomorrow. Seiryu shouts in surprise that it is too sudden, but the butler explains Vandal wishes to congratulate his best friend's engagement as soon as possible. Seiryu mutters that the man must be imagining him panicking and enjoying it. He then remarks that he must inform Lady Sitone as well. The butler warns him that it should only be a short greeting, no more than 15 minutes, and if it goes longer, he will barge into the room. Seiryu snaps at him to be quiet, though he admits that entering a lady's bedroom makes him nervous. From inside, Sitone's calm voice responds, telling him to please come in. Sitone thanks Seiryu for his hard work earlier, addressing him politely. Seiryu flusters and explains that he only came to say goodnight. She tilts her head and wonders if she should have gone to see him instead. But he waves his hands quickly, insisting that is not the case. Gathering himself, he tells her a friend will be visiting tomorrow and asks if she would be willing to meet him. Sitone smiles gently and says it would be an honor. Seiryu then adds that if there is ever anything inconvenient about the mansion, she should tell him, and he will take care of it each time. Sitone replies softly that everyone has been very kind to her, and even Maid Eaton is grateful. Seiryu freezes at the mention of Eaton's name, recalling how she cried so much during the engagement ceremony. Eaton had wept with joy, saying she was happy for her lady. He remembers hearing from the head maid that at Sitone's previous residence the treatment had been cruel. Her meals were meager, her clothes and laundry were torn, and even her small belongings were broken. She endured such mistreatment for 2 long years, and yet she now shows no trace of pain. The maids whisper that their lady has finally found happiness, but Seryu thinks to himself that he dislikes approaching someone who hides their wounds and telling them they must be suffering. Sitone then lowers her gaze and thanks him sincerely, saying that not only did he save her during the engagement ceremony with Prince Arios, but he also asked her to be his consort. Seryu panics and mutters that if anyone should be grateful, it should be him, since he is only a prince in name and nothing more than a bear-like man. Sitone watches him gently and apologizes, saying she had suspected as much. Sitone looks at Seryu with gentle eyes and declares that he is exactly the person she imagined, that he truly has not changed at all. Seryu thinks to himself that she believes he has not changed, but wonders if they have met somewhere before. He questions if it is really alright for him to be the one, but then admits aloud that he is satisfied, or rather that she is far too good for him. Realizing the time, he panics, thinking Raul will scold him, and decides he should excuse himself soon. Before leaving, Sitone quietly asks if the dragon mark bothers him. Seryu thinks that saying it does not bother him at all would be a lie, but insists it is not enough to matter. When she asks if he wants to see it, he quickly says no. She presses, asking if he finds it disgusting, but he answers firmly that he does not. He explains that while its appearance may be striking, calling something disgusting when it's cherished by another country is unthinkable. He remembers how some men had sneered and called it revolting, and the memory makes him grit his teeth in anger. Our prince tells himself that he must show her he's different from men like that, because in the kingdom of Tanya, dragons are a central part of their history, and those who carry dragon marks are deeply respected. Determined not to say or do anything that might hurt her, Seryu puts on the kindest smile of his life and gently asks, "Miss Sitone, would you show me the mark?" Only if you're calm, she blushes and looks at him, asking softly if he truly wants to see it. His sudden reaction makes her wonder if he said something strange. She admits she would like to show him, but says she is not yet mentally prepared. Seryu panics inwardly, realizing the mark is near her chest, and thinks that if she reveals it now, it will only lead to disaster. He apologizes in his thoughts, knowing it is not good. Sitone lowers her gaze and states, if the prince truly insists, then she will. Sitone shyly asks if he would like to see it, but Seryu's nerves collapse, and he decides it is time to retreat. He blurts out that he cannot do this anymore and quickly excuses himself, telling her he will see her tomorrow. His face burns red as he leaves, and the butler, puzzled, asks what the captain was doing. Sitone quietly answers that it is just a misunderstanding. Outside, another man arrives and looks toward the castle with interest. This guy is Vandal. With a knowing smile, he remarks that she must be the woman who captured his dear friend's heart. He adds that he's looking forward to meeting her. Seryu moves quickly through the palace corridors, pulling on his gloves as he listens to the butler inform him that the visitor has arrived on time and is waiting in the guest room. The butler notes the unusual punctuality, given how rarely anyone manages it in the palace's relaxed routine. A livelier mood emerges as Seryu's so-called best friend arrives. The butler repeatedly confirms the guest's presence, and Seryu expresses surprise at the timing. Showing courtesy, the butler thanks the guest for his patience and announces Seryu's entrance. Vandal, Seryu's friend from their military academy days, greets him with an enthusiastic grin, declaring that he's been waiting. Seryu raises an eyebrow at being called a friend, but before he can protest, Vandal hugs him tightly from behind, drawing a groan and a frustrated push from Seryu, who calls him an idiot. Vandal simply laughs off the reaction, claiming Seryu hasn't changed at all over the years. With his usual energy, Vandal jokes about Seryu marrying first, saying life never works out as expected. Seryu replies that Vandal always avoided marriage anyway. As Seryu catches Vandal's gaze, memories of their academy years return. Vandal, famous for his striking looks and flashy fighting style, easily remains single by refusing all matchmaking efforts despite his popularity. Younger students at the academy had once nervously admired the vampire count for his daring duels and unpredictable nature. The conversation takes a playful turn when Vandal presents a wedding gift, sheepishly admitting he couldn't decide what to buy and chose something random. When Seryu asks what it is, Vandal answers dramatically, a whale. Seryu, bewildered, asks if gifting whale bones is a common engagement tradition, but Vandal confesses he isn't sure. Perhaps it's Seryu's people who follow such rituals. Unable to solve the mystery, Seryu simply sighs at Vandal's odd habits. Curious, Vandal asks about Seryu's day. Seryu explains that most of it was spent escorting his second brother to visit in-laws. Vandal teases him, amused by the challenge of leaving bed after getting engaged, prompting Sari to mention that he's forbidden from touching his bride until the royal wedding parade. Vandal rolls his eyes at the strict rule and offers to spar instead. Before they begin, Sari shifts the conversation to the growing problems in the Caravan allied kingdom, pointing out that mining exports have ceased. Vandal's energy turns serious. He explains that King Tanya is bitter over an insult given by the Romanian crown prince to a girl with a dragon mark. Though alternative sources of coal and ore exist, Tanya's minerals were intended for the 5 allied kingdoms, and now Tanya Academy in Romania faces awkward diplomatic issues. At present, King Noi remains in power, though some talk of removing him. Meanwhile, the crown prince is confined to his castle under house arrest, but Vandal predicts the punishment won't last long. Vandal then asks after the princess. Sariu explains that the head butler is summoning her and muses that he wanted a moment alone with Vandal first, for safety. Vandal looks eager to meet her, but just as he begins to rise, fatigue overtakes him, and he nearly collapses. Sariu, alarmed, rushes to catch him. Vandal quickly reassures him with a tired smile, saying the exhausting horse ride was worth it just to congratulate his friend, then adds with a grin that Sariu had better behave, or he might end up confusing his bride. Just then, Sitan Baramo enters the room with calm, graceful composure. Sariu stiffens, flustered, and quickly tries to explain that the situation isn't what it looks like, but Vandal's antics make it worse. With dramatic flair, Vandal springs to one knee and introduces himself as Vandal Sheen, asking Sishin to remember his name. Despite his annoyance, Sariu can't help but silently admire Vandal's annoyingly picturesque face. Sishin also politely introduces herself, her voice calm and composed, and asks that everyone treat her kindly. Sariu privately finds her adorable, remembering her breakfast dress, but thinking her current outfit is even lovelier. Everything about her matches Sariu's own tastes, and he wishes only that he could see her smile, though she shares her happiness with Vandal too. Seeing Sishin, Vandal perks up again, claiming he now understands why Sariu was smitten so quickly. To their surprise, Sishin gently insists that she have fallen for Sariu first. The warm atmosphere grows with trays of tea, cakes, and snacks. Sishin's attention is drawn to a strange bone among the treats. When Sariu wonders aloud if it's a whale bone, Sishin calmly explains that it's the skeleton of a fisherman, a story she learned from her tutor in Tanya. Both guys react with shock, but Sishin's knowledge impresses Vandal. He recalls how skeleton fisherman stories were once popular and is glad that Sishin enjoys the peculiar gift. Vandal compliments Sishin's dress, and she returns the gesture with polite gratitude. Sariu watches the exchange, feeling awkward and wishing he had complimented her first. He admires her radiant skin and graceful appearance in the festive dress. Eventually, he gathers his courage and tells her she looks lovely. He realizes that even if his words stumble, honest feelings matter most, and that Vandal's open praise helped remind him of that. Noticing Sishin's slight fatigue, Sariu checks on her well-being, and she says she's only a little tired. Vandal admits that the country's situation exhausts him too. Sishin politely asks permission to speak, and once given, she begins. Maybe Vandal somehow is. Sishin quietly observes the paleness in Lord Vandal's face and suggests that he might be suffering from anemia. The comment surprises Sariu, who reacts with disbelief, but Sishin calmly explains the symptoms. The sudden collapse and pale complexion are typical signs of iron deficiency. Sariu reflects that such conditions seem more common among women, but Sitian points out the spoon-shaped ridges on Vandal's nails, saying these are classic signs of anemia. Both men examine Vandal's hands closely, their surprise clear as she explains the connection. Vandal frowns and admits his nails are curved. Sariu jokes that the nails reflect their owner's stubborn personality, earning a sharp reply from Vandal. With steady composure, Sitchin asks about Vandal's medication. He explains that his doctor once suggested soaking old nails in wine and drinking the mixture, an answer that makes Sari question whether Vandal is truly anemic. Sitchin shifts the focus to Vandal's diet, recommending pork liver or chicken for their iron content. However, Sari recalls that Vandal has always hated meat. When she asks about fish, Vandal admits he eats a little but not much. Sitian nods and reassures him that even a small amount is helpful. She then suggests dark-fleshed bonito, explaining how its iron content supports health. With gentle authority, she lists ways to prepare fish to reduce its strong odor: washing, soaking, frying with herbs, and adding lemon to aid iron absorption. Her explanation expands to include plant-based sources such as spinach, jujube, seaweed, and soybeans, noting that pairing them with vinegar or fruit improves the body's ability to absorb the nutrients. Both men are struck by her detailed answers. Vandal mumbles that he always thought anemia only affected women, but Saryu firmly reminds him that illness knows no gender and suffering is the same for all. Sishin agrees, insisting that pain makes no distinction and encourages Vandal to follow her advice for better health. Saryu gazes at her, amazed by her knowledge, and jokes that she resembles a doctor. Sitian blushes and quickly denies the claim, apologizing for her boldness, leaving Saryu unsure what to think about her or about his next move. Curious, he asks if she has any medical training. Vandal, also intrigued, wonders if her father is a court physician, but Sishin shakes her head. Saryu hesitantly asks if her advice is truly accurate, while Vandal looks thoughtful, wondering whether her recommendations could cure his anemia. Saryu begins to worry that he may have been too blunt. Sitchin responds with quiet confidence, explaining that individual results may vary, but with the recommended diet, Lord Vandal's condition will likely improve and her advice will prove effective. Vandal studies her for a moment, then asks directly if she is a doctor. She answers no, but Vandal remarks that her understanding of medicine is impressive. Suddenly, he turns to Saryu and asks when he might bring Sitchin to visit his territory. The question leaves Saryu stunned. Vandal clarifies that he simply wants to know when both Saryu and Sitchin will be free to visit. Saryu estimates that he needs 5 days to complete his current responsibilities. Vandal calculates that the entire journey will take 7 days, then promises to inform his father. With a wide smile, he assures them that his household will eagerly await their visit. As they walk back, Vandal calls out to Saryu, expressing his excitement about seeing him soon and cheerfully calling him his friend. Saryu remains puzzled by the turn of events, slowly realizing that his and Sishin's trip to Count Shin's territory is now settled. Saryu finds himself unexpectedly drawn into an expedition to Count Shin's territory, though he admits to his elder brother that he doesn't fully understand the reason behind it. Leonias is certain their father would never allow such a trip, but both princes are stunned when the king grants permission with a stern, unreadable expression. He explains that he has already heard the story from Count Shin and warns that the situation is confidential. Saryu will learn the full details only when he arrives. Even with permission from both his father and elder brother, Raul insists they must travel under proper protection. Eaton steps forward, vowing to personally watch over the young lady. Saryu informs the princess that lodging will be provided by each local lord along the way, serving not just as accommodation, but also as formal introductions. After all preparations are complete, they finally set out 20 days after Vandal's visit. Saryu feels relieved when his apology is answered with a simple note. It couldn't be helped. When they reach their destination, a plump man greets them warmly, saying it is a great honor for his lord to host the prince. He is delighted at the grand welcome arranged on the very first day, and mentions that many people are eager for an audience. While speaking, he casually asks about Lady Sishin, recalling the incident at the engagement ceremony in the Luminous Kingdom, where the prince stole her away, something expected, especially from the Winter Bear. Shocked, Saryu chokes on his drink and demands, "What kind of story is that?" But the man only laughs, saying rumors are often unreliable. Another man steps in, saying the truth was very different from what spread. The plump man agrees, adding that Lady Sishin herself is not at all like the stories. Surprised, Saryu asks what kind of rumors were spread. They explain that people once accused her of arrogance about her dragon crest, of avoiding social circles out of pride, of wasting money, and even of struggling with foreign languages. Shocked, Saryu blurts out a question about who could spread such lies. The man quickly apologizes for his words, but the plump man adds that he too should apologize, saying anyone who meets Lady Sitian knows the rumors are false. He suggests that Prince Arios likely spread them to cut ties with her. In truth, she is fluent in foreign languages and carries no arrogance about her heritage. These words stir Saryu's thoughts. She has been away from her homeland for 2 years, speaking mostly foreign tongues. How long has it been since she last used her native language? He recalls the white veil she wore at the engagement ceremony, like a cocoon, and wonders if she is still hiding her true self, waiting for the moment to break free. The talk soon shifts to newer rumors about Romania's crown princess, Mail. The comments are harsh. People claim she is ignorant of politics and society, unfit for diplomacy. Things became worse when Romania's mines ran dry and they had to buy from Tanya through foreign merchants. At that time, Mail shamelessly begged Tanya's officials to sell her jewels for her own wedding, not for the kingdom. The scandal shifted blame onto Sishin, painting her as the villain. Though Mail was once admired, her tricks had now been exposed. Another lady adds bitterly that the neighboring crown prince cannot judge character, recalling how he once told Sishin that someone like her, just because of her looks, could never be his wife. Those words deeply hurt Sishin, and the woman adds that he deserves a little suffering himself. To everyone's surprise, Lord Rawl reacts sharply at this remark, startling Miss Eaton and the rest. Sari quickly asks what happened and orders Rawl to investigate. Rawl checks a glass and says the drink may have gone bad. When Sari takes a sniff, realization hits him. It contains peach. Sishin has always had a severe allergy to peaches and apples. Even the smallest trace would swell her throat and face and cause a dangerous fever. As she grew older, the condition became so severe that even contact with juice was life-threatening. Sariu had already sent strict orders to every local lord not to serve these fruits, yet here it was. When asked to confirm, Rawl says solemnly that it is indeed peach. Sari demands to know how it reached Sishin's hands. Eaton explains that the butler gave it to her politely, but the princess noticed the scent before drinking. Sari rules out any mistake, since no other woman in the hall carried the title of princess. That means it was no accident. Someone deliberately targeted her. Rawl advises the captain to stay constantly at her side. As an extra precaution, he even suggests that they share the same room for a while. At this, Sariu freezes, his mind racing uncontrollably toward the meaning of the bedroom. Feeling uneasy in the shared room, Sariu tells her to just think of him as heir. But Sishin gently insists that she's the one intruding. An hour earlier, they had searched for the butler mentioned in Eden's testimony, but the man who gave Sishin the glass was nowhere to be found. Rawl concludes she is clearly being targeted, and when others argue that separate bedrooms would be dangerous in case of an attack, they suggest the Winter Bear of Tidros be by her side. Secretly, Sariu thinks the Winter Bear is likely the one to attack. At present, he muses that he endures it because they usually sleep apart. He decides to take the sofa, but when he tells Sishin, she bursts out, shouting that she will sleep there instead. Sari refuses, saying no girl should sleep on a sofa, and though she argues she is not that young anymore, he reflects that 20 is still young. He reminds himself that he must not touch her. When she suggests they share the bed, he panics, sure it would be worse, and she teases that her Winter Bear could never endure it. He promises to stay on the edge quietly, though he doubts his control. She gives him the choice, sofa or bed, and he realizes that lying together on the sofa would be riskier, so he chooses to endure on the edge of the bed. In the end, they lie down together, and Sariu struggles with the urge to watch her, finding every small movement unbearably cute. She notices his gaze and asks if his spot is comfortable. To avoid answering, he changes the subject to the earlier drink, and she replies that it seemed meant for another young lady, saying it is better not to make a fuss. He agrees, deciding not to tell her the full truth since the reason behind it is still unclear, and resolves that the night order will stay on high alert while he protects her personally from the closest place. Remembering something, he says he has been thinking since the evening party. He suggests speaking in Tanyan when they are alone, and he admits awkwardly that he only knows simple phrases and cannot use polite speech in it. He explains that since she has spent so much time speaking foreign languages, she must sometimes miss her own tongue, and while Tidrosian is needed in public, she does not have to force it in private. Sishin then asks why he has always been kind to her from the beginning, and he answers simply that since they are to be husband and wife, it is natural for a husband to treat his wife well. The words stir unease in her, and he notices her eyes drifting past him. She quietly asks him to look at her dragon mark, touching her chest as she says it has always been her pride, at least in her homeland where people respect their culture and history. Sari replies that it is only because she herself loves Tidros, but she admits she has learned that not all countries return courtesy with courtesy. She apologizes and gives an example. Just as she hates insects, if someone had insects carved into their body, could someone who hated them ever grow to love that person? She wonders whether Arios hated her dragon scales or the act of carving them, and with pain in her voice says that if she carries something her partner finds repulsive, he could never truly love her. She begs Sari to look at her dragon mark and be honest. Would he find it disgusting? Would he hate it, like Arios did? Her words feel like a test, and Sari senses she is comparing him to Arios. He wishes she could let go of that shadow, but she admits she cannot forget. She confesses she once tried to love and respect Arios but cannot forgive his mockery, then apologizes for saying too much, her voice trembling as she bows. Sari takes in her pain, realizing he should have understood her struggles better. She explains that rejection from strangers does not matter, but rejection from him would wound her deeply. She repeats that she does not know if Arios hated the scales or the carving, but she fears her partner will always see her as repulsive. She begs him again to look at her dragon mark and tell the truth. Sari burns inside, wishing she would stop comparing him to Arios, reminding himself that he is the one standing before her, not the ghost of her past. Yet she continues, anguish spilling out as she admits she once tried to honor Arios as her fiancé, but cannot forgive his cruelty, apologizing once more with a shaking voice. He feels guilt at the heavy weight she carries. Finally, she says strangers' dislike means nothing, but if Sari were to reject her, it would truly break her. He answers firmly that he could never hate her. She replies that this is why he must see her dragon mark now. If he finds it disgusting, she will give up on him immediately. She will go through with the marriage for the sake of their countries, but if needed, she will cut off her feelings and live as nothing more than a doll. Sariu, tense but determined, agrees to see it. Inside, he's panicking, but the cruel name lizard people briefly crosses his mind. Still, his resolve to accept her completely is stronger. When Sishin lowers her hand, revealing the mark carved across her chest, he's taken aback, not by fear, but by how strikingly beautiful it is. He quietly asks, "Did Arios see it?" She replies that she had offered to show him first, but he refused. Sariu is stunned. He silently calls Arios a fool for being scared without even looking, and for hurting Sishin in the process. Now his eyes linger on the mark, and without thinking, his hand moves forward. The skin beneath his fingers is warm and soft, and the touch shocks him. He pulls back quickly, face burning, while Sishin quietly studies him. Uneasy tension builds inside him, and he tells her to keep some distance, frustrated by his own lack of control. He mutters an apology, embarrassed at being so exposed, but Sishin gently apologizes too for reacting. She asks if the dragon mark was disgusting, but he quickly blurts out that it's the opposite. The space between them feels heavy, as if one step closer will break his restraint. His voice trembles as he asks if she hates him, but she answers gently with warmth. Relief floods him, and his chest tightens with gratitude. His eyes sting with tears because it feels unfair. She is so kind, their feelings seem to be mutual, yet doubt still holds him back. The weight of identity and duty presses on him, making it feel like a trial he must endure. She notices his unease, her worry growing, and he forces a weak smile, promising half-heartedly that he will keep to his side of the bed. He tells her to sleep first, avoiding her gaze. To clear his mind, he decides to recite an old-school poetry. But before he can begin, Sidin lies at the edge of the bed and, placing a hand gently over his head, softly chants a poem once used to chase away pain. He thanks her quietly, then wonders to himself, is she a goddess or a demon? On the third day of travel, the group stops at a roadside cafe. Rahul and his men observe Sari carefully, worried he might be tired. Sari reflects to himself that he has been sharing a bed with Sitchin since that restless night, struggling to control his feelings while the memory of her holding his hand under the moonlight still keeps him awake. Rahul suggests he rest upstairs while Sishin enjoys the courtyard, promising to guard the place, but Sari refuses, not wanting to rest while his men are still on duty. When he notices Sishin is not around, Rahul points toward the courtyard with a small smile. Sari takes a cup of coffee and steps outside, finding her there. He looks silently. Rahul encourages him to go closer. Days of continuous travel, meals with lords, he wants Sishin to enjoy her tea and sweets in peace, so he wants to keep her circle small. At night, sharing a room allows her the comfort of speaking her native language. Though her silence shows she wants to be alone sometimes, he respects it. In the courtyard, a butler walks up to Sishin with a tray. Sariu asks about peaches and apples, but Rahul reassures him that the staff has already been informed. Sariu notices the shine of a knife hidden among the dishes. Instinct takes over. He shouts a warning and rushes forward, pushing her out of harm's way as the man attacks. The stranger swings wildly with both blades, but Sariu meets the strikes with calm, dodging and moving steadily. Rahul stands ready to join the fight, but Sariu signals him to hold back. Watching closely, he finds the man's weakness and strikes at the right moment, throwing him down and pinning him. He asks for a rope, and they bind him. Rahul informs him that they'll handle the rest, urging him to go to Miss Sishin. She instantly hugs him, and Saryu pulls her close, feeling her shaking, though her only concern is for him. He brushes it aside with quiet strength, claiming that he's called the Winter Bear for a reason. He orders the cafe's second floor to be secured and commands that they continue toward Vandal's territory without delay, leaving some men behind to investigate. When he calls Eaton forward, her legs give way. He carries Sishin into the carriage himself. She whispers that she is glad he is safe, still thinking of him instead of herself. He smiles faintly, struck by how it feels as though she is the one protecting him. He promises that neither of them will fall, not while she is in his arms. She softly asks again if he is truly safe, if he will survive. He answers firmly that he will not die, and neither will she. As long as they stay together, nothing can harm them. The knights echo his vow, telling Princess Sichin to rest easy because no one can hurt her now, as that's the safest place. Saryu seals that promise in silence, vowing that no harm will ever reach her as long as he's by her side.
Here I